Welcome back to the Wargrove of Woe, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the terror of chaos himself, Archaeon the Everchosen. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody that I have a Discord now, or at least I'm trying to start one. That link will be in the description if you just want to hang out, ask questions, or just generally have another way to interact with me. So, Archaeon the Everchosen is an interesting character. He comes in at almost 1,000 points, being at 830. Archaeon can be taken, he's technically a Slaves to Darkness model, but he can be taken in any Chaos army, and he actually gets the allegiance abilities from the 4 main Chaos armies. We'll talk about that later. But for starters, he has a degrading movement characteristic of 14 inches with fly, 10 bravery, a massive 20 wounds, a 3-up save, 2 casts, 2 unbinds. He has a ton of monstrous melee profiles, the first of being the Slayer of Kings, 1-inch reach, 4 attacks, 2s to hit, 3s to wound, 2 rend, and 3 damage. Then Monstrous Claws, 1-inch reach, 2 attacks, 2s to hit, 2s to wound, 2 rend, d6 damage. He's got Lashing Tails, 3-inch reach, 2d6 attacks, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, no rend, 1 damage, and then 3 heads, 3-inch reach, a degrading chart for the amount of attacks that starts at 6, 3s and 3s to hit and wound, 1 rend, 2 damage. He has 1.5 command abilities that he can use. I say half because his second one is kind of odd, but the first one, by my will, pick one friendly Slaves to Darkness unit anywhere on the battlefield, and if models from that unit are slain, they can fight again before they die. And then his half command ability is All-Seeing Dominion. Whenever an enemy uses a CP or a command point, you can use my will or by my will for free on a 2-up. So how it would work is an enemy uses a command point, you can spend a command point for All-Seeing Dominion, and then you roll a dice on a 2-up, you get your command point back, and you can use by my will. A little interesting, helps you get the most value out of your dudes. For unique abilities, he has quite a few. So like I said at the beginning of this slide, he is considered a general, even if you have selected a different one. So he's kind of like a second general. And he can be included in Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, or Slaanesh armies, and he gets their allegiance abilities, which is really powerful. He has a 4+ ward with a 6+ mortal wound bounce back. So when you do your ward roll, if you roll a 6, you do 1 mortal wound to the enemy. He gives +2 to friendly chaos units bravery, wholly within 12 inches of him, and he gives a -2 bravery for everybody else wholly within 12 inches of him. And that's enemy units, not friendly units, if you're allied with something. Once per game, you can make Archaeon -1 to hit until your next hero phase. He has a 4+ spell ignore that includes endless spells and just spells in general. And then here's a big one. If you are targeting a hero and 2 of your wound rolls for the Slayer of Kings are 6s, that hero is slain. Now that's pretty powerful. Additionally, if he is on the battlefield, you get an additional CP in your hero phase, which is always helpful. And then his fantastic mount, Durgar, has some special abilities that you can do once per hero phase. You have a 12-inch D3 mortal wounds on a 3-up to an enemy unit. You can heal D3, or you can unbind an endless spell within 18 inches. So Archaeon is probably the best combat character in the game. He is just the pinnacle of melee combat and melee destruction. He is really scary, and if you've been keeping up with some of the competitive scene, Archaeon lists are one of the most scary things you can come up against, especially in Tzeentch. I'll explain that in a second, but he's also nigh unkillable with his 20 wounds, a really good ward, and a high save, and he's got a lot of stuff to keep him from dying. And for the most part, the best way to deal with Archaeon is to just not try and kill him, or just kind of keep him busy while you do other stuff. And he's also pretty versatile. You can change up a whole bunch of things with Archaeon and put him in a lot of different situations and he'll be fine. But as I mentioned earlier, for potential alliance abilities, if you include him in a Tzeentch army, he has access to Destiny Dice and Agendas of Anarchy. So if you don't know what either of those things are, Destiny Dice are basically where Tzeentch cheats at the game and can change any dice roll that they roll to whatever number they want. So a good combo is if you have 1 or 2 6s, you can save those to make your Slayer of Kings proc and just straight up kill a hero. Now that can be really nuts if it's a really big hero like one of the other god characters or whatever else you need dead. Or just to make a specific charge or just generally make things a bit more consistent. Agendas of Anarchy I think doesn't get talked about enough. These are little like side missions that you can do in Tzeentch, and they add permanent buffs to your character or unit that completes them. Some of the big ones that I saw were if you complete a 9-inch charge, which is pretty easy if you have Destiny Dice, you get an additional attack or something for the rest of the game. Or like if you kill a hero or monster that has more than 9 wounds, you get another combat buff. And basically there's a whole bunch of different things you can do to further buff up Archeon in Tzeentch. And out of the 4 Chaos Gods, I think Tzeentch is your best one for Archeon to ally into, but there could be arguments made for any of them, except maybe Nurgle, but that's just because Nurgle doesn't really offer Archeon too much compared to the other 3. Nurgle and Slaanesh don't offer him too much. Mostly the 2 big ones are Khorne and Tzeentch. Oh, I'd also like to point out a mistake I made earlier in a different video. I think it was my tier list video where I said Archeon gets Destiny Dice in Slaves to Darkness. I meant that was in a Tzeentch army. So if you ally Archeon into a Tzeentch army. So just a quick little oopsie on my part. Anyway, if you include Archeon in Khorne, like a Blades of Khorne army, the various rewards you can get for Blood Tithe points in the hero phase, like movement tools or attack twice, 6s to hit or explode, all that jazz, those can be really powerful on Archeon, and definitely worth the Blood Tithe. Nurgle, the main thing he could provide to Archeon is the cycle of corruption buffs, but that is entirely random, and so you can't really guarantee one or the other, but it could help, especially the +1 to wound, making some of Archeon's like 3s and 4s to wound, 2s and 3s, etc. I couldn't find too much synergy with Slaanesh. The biggest thing I could see was the innate 6s to hit explode, whereas Khorne you'd have to spend a Blood Tithe to get that. But there's nothing stopping you from putting Archeon in Slaanesh. So that was the review of Archeon the Everchosen. Personally, I think Archeon is one of the coolest models in Age of Sigmar. He's just so crazy with Durgar, and I'm really glad he's a model. He's really scary right now, but overall, I think he's really cool. And his lore is pretty awesome. If you ever give it a read, I definitely recommend that. Anyway, this has been the Worker of Well, and I'll see you guys next time.